Thanks for joining Ethiopian Digest to discuss the recent comment made by President Trump regarding the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Can you introduce yourself to our viewers? Can I start with Dr. Lulsegged?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of this panel. My name is Lulsegged Abebe. Well, I am an expert on peace and security issues.
Thanks for inviting me to share my idea with the current situation. And my name is Seblework Tadesse. I live in Brisbane, Australia. I'm social worker by profession, but also I'm very passionate and involved in the GERD support team here in Australia.
Thanks for inviting me to be part of this panel. I am Bekele Woyecha. I live in London, and I am actually engaged working on issues related to migration and refugees.
Thank you. Trump said recently, he said they built a dam which stops water from flowing into the Nile. He also said Egypt will blow up the dam. Do you think he's misinformed, or do you think he's trying to pressure Ethiopia to accept the deal brokered by the United States? Dr. Lulsegged?
Thank you very much. I think, well, is he misinformed? Possibly yes. Is it deliberate? Possibly yes again. But I think it would be very unlikely to say that, well, he has been totally misinformed, because the US is part of the negotiation team. They are observers in the negotiation team, and they have really been trying to play the role of a mediator earlier on, which they managed to do a peace deal between the three countries, rather a peace agreement between the three countries. And they had produced a document, which for me, from the statement of the president now, was not neutral, but was actually intended to help the interest of the Egypt rather than the basin countries. So it is not, and it is, we cannot say that it's not intentional, it is intentional. And of course, there are different issues now currently going on in the US. The election is one of it. So he might have tried to use it as a campaigning strategy. Is he planning to pressurize Ethiopia to sign the deal? No, I don't think so. Well, Ethiopia has clearly indicated it at different occasions from the very outset, saying that, well, Ethiopia is not actually trying to harm or hurt anybody in downstream countries, but is working towards equitable share of water rather than the traditional and the colonial agreement that has really given an opportunity for Sudan and Egypt to have the Nile share of the water. So, well, of course, he has also said that they are going to really hold back some development assistance. It is unfortunate that the government is using that as a means to curb a country from using its resources for its own people, but it is unlikely that Ethiopia would be in a position to accept that. And yes, they can pressurize it, but it's not going to work, because Ethiopia is doing the dam by its own resources, and it is not only a dam of Ethiopia, but it's a dam of Africa, and it is actually 100% resourced internally. So it is the people's dam. It's not the government's dam.
I couldn't believe when I hear it, because it is biggest country of America, which we believe one of the leader of the world who lead that country, which have a very strong international relationship. They're very diplomat in their word. Sometimes they're not in their deed, but in their word. So I was shocked listening that from what it comes from his mouth, because this is not, it's just ignorant. I don't think so. I don't agree. I absolutely agree with the scenario. I think Dr. How he put it on, but it is deliberate and it's provocative. But also, as we know, Trump is coming, and based on his supporters or his audience is mostly very right-wing racist groups. As we know, he has that kind of support, and he tries to appeal that. But also, I see as election view, like to elections, those certain section of the Egyptian, Egyptian American, or the Jewish or others who he think is addressing. I don't think that is a collective American policy as a direction, in my opinion. But also I see it in his language, in his words, how you use like, Ethiopia, and the subject he used, like I and them, it's like, even between wife and husband, you have respect how you talk, even if you have, difference. But he speaks as if he's like a servant who would just tell them to do things, but they don't do it. And, the body gesture and the language he used, completely unacceptable. And I'm sure, many of the, as we all heard from European Union to even some of the Republican, Congress and senators, they speak loudly. This doesn't actually reflect what the American view in that, and they strongly believe, Ethiopia has absolute right to utilize, to lift their own community, society or people from poverty and use their natural resources. This is a natural right, in my opinion, when it comes to the international relationship. Each sovereign country has absolute right to use the resource which they have in their own land. Of course, there is a law, governing the world when it comes to the international water. And Ethiopia is very clear from the beginning. They respect that, and which we were being, because actually it shows is the historical injustice Ethiopia was going through from our, from Menelik to King Haile Selassie and others. They were wishing to develop, but twisting arms or deprivating the resource from the international is, and also knowledge also, it was part of it. It was a historical injustice, and it's been bluntly been said by, I think, the President Trump. But again, the word, I think, it's absolutely, if it was other country or other group saying it, it is a terrorist way, like saying bomb it and doing this. It is, the international community, they try to create a peace between countries. And Ethiopia is one of the UN council, so you can't just keep saying that literally. And even the Egyptian didn't say that, those people, they didn't even say that directly. They may do with that internally, but not in the diplomacy stage. So how I see it, I think it is completely deliberate ignorance and despising the power of African. Ethiopia shows us, our history telling us during the Adwa, even the second Italian invasion, the world was turning their face from Ethiopia, and they didn't provide in support, but we, in our own feet, we did that. And I think we are now in the economical war, which we try to lift up ourselves. And it shows me he represents literally those who think the Ethiopian or the Black nation can't do things by themselves. So that kind of message, they try to insult the country. So that's a feeling I had. But I'm very also positive with the messaging coming out from some congressmen and from the international community supporting Ethiopia.
Well, when I heard, the comment by the president, I was really shocked and I was really angry. It was really very saddening because you wouldn't expect such a comment from a sitting American president. He kind of forgot the strong relationship that between Ethiopia and the United States. And it's really vital that we have a president who would actually see relationships in depth, diplomacy in depth. I think, by the time the president spoke and said, Egypt could bomb the dam, I just say, how could he say this? It's just, inciting violence on a sovereign country, that's Ethiopia. And we cannot accept this. And I don't think that's a policy of the party. I think it was just, a deliberate message by the president to kind of really subdue sovereign countries, that's Ethiopia, to accept to the deal he kind of prepared, or his party or his administration prepared a while ago. There's something important. Ethiopia has a right to use its resources. Ethiopia has a right to build what it believes is going to help its own country. But Ethiopia is not only asking for that. Ethiopia is asking for equitable share of the water, the resources, what the Nile is availing for Ethiopia and the rest of Africa, for that matter. So the president's reckless comment, it's so reckless comment, was not helpful. It would rather bring tension. And that's not what we need. For the president to say that on the day, he was really happy to have brought together Sudan and Israel for the normalization process. And on the day he was talking about, being one of those peacemakers in the world, it's a very unfortunate comment, because you wouldn't expect from somebody who was talking about peace earlier to kind of instigating or inciting violence in just minutes time. So that was very unfortunate, and I think he has to apologize to Ethiopians. That's how I say it, because this is not acceptable. This is not what you would expect from a sitting American president. You wouldn't expect from anybody anyway, because by the way, inciting violence is not acceptable. If it was done by somebody else, it would have been labeled as terrorism, or an act of terrorism, or inciting terrorism. And for that matter, the president has really made a reckless comment, and that's not acceptable. And we as Ethiopians should not accept it. And there's another thing what's important, he talked about money, and there was no foreign money used to build the dam. It's Ethiopians who paid for the dam. And it's Ethiopians who will keep paying for the dam. That's why we say it is our dam. That's why we say stay away from our dam, because it's our own business. We will deal with it. So the president, I think, is ignorant, because he doesn't know a lot about Ethiopia. I don't think he knows about the dam itself. I don't think he knows about the wider Africa. So he was ill-informed, ill-prepared. He was just saying whatever he wanted to say, but his words were really dangerous, because by the end of the day, we are not ready for another violence.
So staying in there, Bekele, what do you think if what he says is right, and if Egypt bombs the dam and the region starts a war, what will be the impact for the people living in that region?
First of all, it's vital to remember, what the benefit of the dam would be for Ethiopia and the countries close to Ethiopia. It's important that people know, how much the dam will benefit Ethiopia, as I said, and then the rest of Africa. What's the economic benefit? What does it mean? What would it bring? What would it bring to Africa? What does it mean in creating tourism, job opportunity, employment opportunities? All those things should be put into account. I'm not an expert in that. I'm an expert only in loving my country, as I say very often. But if I don't think Egypt would go into that, I have no hesitation at all. I don't believe that Egypt would ever try to do the wrong thing, because it's not in the interest of Egypt. So that's why the negotiations has already started and has continued, because it's really vital we talk about a negotiation so that we have an equitable share of the water of the Nile. But if crisis was to go to the the wrong way, then it's going to have impact on the wider Africa. It will not be on an impact not only on the wider Africa, but it's going to have impact on Europe, and the rest of the world, because people will be forced to leave their places. They'll be pushed to leave their place because they have to search for peace and safety and security. So it's going to have impact, on the migration. On the migration aspect should be thought very thoroughly. But as I say, I wouldn't assume that there's going to be Egypt would be reckless and then do the wrong thing.
If just one point from the previous conversation, I think what we have to be aware of that people have really been jailed and have really been arrested in Europe and in the US and elsewhere. When in their conversation, when they say that, when they use the word bomb, and then they were really labeled as terrorists. So, well, I think it was really unfortunate that the sitting president of the US has used that word. And it is like a gangster, I would say, rather than a head of a state, using the word bomb it, blew it. So that is very sad. Having said that, I think when it comes to would Egypt follow suit of the president, well, I am sure they won't, because it has a negative impact. It would have a negative impact in the region. It's not only in the Horn of Africa or in the Africa alone, but it would also have a negative impact in the Middle East. It's not only the Middle East, it would have a very consequential effect in most African countries. So I don't think that, well, Egypt would be in a position, would be actually interested to go engage in war. And you remember then when in 2013 or 14, when Morsi used that word, well, they even didn't say it after that. There has always been speculation that Egypt is going to go attack the dam, but nobody has really publicly from the government of Egypt have used that word. So it is in the, it's not interest, it is not. It doesn't help anybody in the region. Well, we know the consequence of conflict. And for Egypt, I think we have to be aware that, well, they have a war next to them, Libya. They have a war next to them, well, in Sinai itself. So it is not in the interest of Egypt to really go into that confrontational stage and then involve in war. And as it was said earlier on, well, the dam is not only, it's not harming Egypt at all, nor Sudan. It is actually about an equitable share of water rather than historical right. And then Ethiopia, for Ethiopia, this is actually one of the means to fulfill its SDGs, Sustainable Development Goal 7, for example. Well, providing energy for the people. So it is actually, well, Ethiopia is Egypt has 100% electricity coverage, almost. It's 99.9. Ethiopia has only 40%. So 60% of our people are actually living in darkness. So the dam is actually is expected to bring a substantial change in the economy and the way of life of the people of Ethiopia. So it is in the interest of Ethiopia, and it's not only to Ethiopia alone. Well, Sudan itself is going to benefit from the dam. Neighboring countries, Djibouti, Somalia, Kenya are going to really benefit from the dam. It's not only there, even it can, the supply of electricity can also go as far as to Uganda. So, I mean, it has really, this dam is not for Ethiopia alone. It has an element which should help regional integration, if you want. It would actually integrate the region at large, rather than only benefiting Ethiopia. And if you see, Sudan spends annually about $60 million for dredging the dam. to extract silt that has really been accumulated in the dam. The construction of good, the dam in Ethiopia would actually reduce and save Sudan that amount of money annually. So it has a very comprehensive health contribution to the development of the region. So I think that is how we really need to see it. So for me, would Sudan, Egypt go to war with Ethiopia? Well, I don't think so. They are not so stupid to really follow such a statement by the president. But it is going to be beneficial. Therefore, they have started the negotiations. They have continued the negotiation. The negotiation is going on in Addis today as we speak. So I don't think that they would go.
Yeah, I think the two questions. One is possible, Egypt will bomb the dam. I don't think she can. If she try, yes, as all my colleagues explain, from that point of view, may not. But if they tried, Ethiopia don't, keep themselves and waiting that happen. And I think it's people are stupid thinking who Ethiopians are. Maybe they don't know who Ethiopians are. When it comes to this, it's our dam. It's every single person who contribute on that dam. It's not only government. It's people who are in the street, people in the bigger, palace. Everyone is actually contributing. It's my money. It's my interest. So it's not. And there's also neighboring countries who are allowed to be buying also bond and through different things means they are contributing to build this dam. So it is a foolish idea to do that. But if the possibilities, if there is, and if there does, that's why maybe the European Commission they actually against of whatever been said, they were actually denounced that, because the first influx of the problem is swapping the European, but also other worlds, because we know conflict is always bringing something unexpected things, human cost, economical cost, environmental cost in that matter. So I don't think that is will happen, but it happened. Yes, definitely it is a biggest, not only economical, human and other things, that would be a cost. In addition to that, I think what is the best thing from this? Okay, if not, as we know, the countries are not, I never heard, as I think the doctor says, I never heard any of the Egyptian seated officials outside publicly, like Trump. They didn't say that kind of wording. They are more interested actually to keep going. Yes, this will be benefited us. Yes, this has some positive thing, but they are fearing the power shift, the geopolitical power shift. And they try to hang on in that. So what they try to do is twisting the arm, Ethiopian arm, so they can still, yes, you build dam, but we are powerful. So they are fearing in the power, which will be coming, the African actually work their own selves, for themselves. And this dam bringing economical revolution around the region, East and Horn African countries, but also it will brighten for some other African or other colonial history countries who are twisted by the previous colonial treaties. It will liberate them. So this is some liberation coming from this. So it's not only one way, there's a multiple implication. That's why maybe some of, like America, who can, they continue giving us money so that we can depend all the time, so that they can twist us whenever they want us. And that will not happen. I mean, for everything, there's a time. It is a time for us as Ethiopian, but also as African, to earn our own economy and have a power in our own inside, internally, because up to now, we're powerless. Our internal politics is being twisted, because as long as it's not the interest of these big countries, they come and they twist you. They don't give you even time to settle your own internal issues. So there's a bigger picture in that. It is, again, I always say, privilege is very hard to let it go. But you know what? There is a time the Egyptians, they have to understand. They have to let it go.
A lot of reaction from Ethiopians abroad as well as inside the country. But how do you assess that? I mean, in terms of the reaction from the government, as well as people, especially the ones in the US, considering the fact that the US is going to have election next week.
it has really become a uniting factor. I mean, in spite of what is going on in the country between, it's not a partisan issue. This is a national development issue. As we have said earlier on, it's not only national development, it is a continental development issue. So it has really mobilized Ethiopians in the diaspora, be it in the US, everywhere. And they are saying that, well, this is a responsible statement from head of state, a sitting president, a long-time friend of Ethiopia. Well, the diplomatic relationship between Ethiopia and the US is more than 100 years. So this, we are talking of a relationship of 100 years, a century. So, well, I think with the statement of one sitting president, that is not going to be eroded. However, the Ethiopians in the US have really mobilized, and they have said that, well, Mr. President, well, can you stop interfering in our internal affairs? Well, some have, even there are a group who say that, well, the $130 million you are talking about, well, you can keep it. We don't need it. We can easily contribute and then raise more than that. So that has really become a unifying factor. The statement, the negative statement, the attempt by a sitting president to make such a statement suggesting to destroy a national icon has created an anger. Therefore, they have said that, well, most of them have said that, well, we have to really punish him. Even if we are politically Republicans, well, we say that some of them have said that, most of them have said that they are not going to vote for him. And of course, that is the beauty of democracy. If you are not satisfied with the leader, you can use your ballot and then oust him out. Hopefully, he will. But I think that has really been the reaction. And I think people are eager and willing and ready to help the completion of the good. And everybody is focusing on that rather than on other issues, even rather than focusing on the rhetoric of the president. They are saying that, well, let us go deep in our pocket, contribute, and so that we might see that the dam is completed as planned.
So, Seble, can I come to you and ask you, as a person who actively involved in raising funds for the development of the building, finishing the dam, have you seen any kind of increase in terms of contribution from the diaspora?
Oh, yes. I speak from where I live, and many people, because before this, Trump saying this, we had mobilizing. A lot of people are actually eager to contribute because they strongly believe we need to finish it. But we encourage and mobilizing. But since it's been said, people actually come to. We don't need to do much actually, and people say, "Oh, I need to send something. I want to help." Not buying a bond. I want to actually contribute. So yes, bond is great thing because you get back your money after it's been finished in its maturity time. But there are people who willingly want to contribute directly. So they are very upset. I mean, again, I always say the negative force for Ethiopian, if it's outside, from outside, it's kind of a fuel to come together. So actually what it does is the opposite what the Trump tried to do. It is, they don't know us. We are Ethiopians. Yes, we fight. We really nasty each other when it comes to our land, our people, our collectiveness. They showed us. I see so much mobilization, willingness, voluntarily people want to contribute. And some, they don't know even how to contribute. So they, how can we do this, So we're encouraging also the government, but also those, the embassies to do more information to the community and yeah, there is a very positive response to the people. They want to finish it and they want to show that. And of course, you know, in history, I think we always have this historical incidents when we have external pressure, but also we have internal issues like, you know, the harvest, most of the harvest in Ethiopia now been eaten by lockdown and the other things, and the conflict in between. It happened, and that's the reflection when I see that, oh, again, external, you know, force coming in. But actually it does the different thing, which people are willing and contributing, and it's not enough. I think we need to do more and faster. I know Corona did a lot. We support our family, our friends who lost their jobs and they need a means of living. But, you know, there is a priority. I think earlier was been saying, you know, developing and having a GERD means, and I recently, you know, not recently, almost a year, I've been in the north part of Ethiopia where Blue Nile mostly begin, you know, the Guna Mountain, which is the source of the more than 42 spring waters, which goes to feeding the Lake Tana. And I've been walking and traveling and around that. It's just heartbreaking, you know. They don't have, recently, yes, there's some section of the place, they have a little light, but nothing. No infrastructure, nothing. Like, you know, these are the people who, you know, they are the blessing of Blue Nile. I prefer saying Abai. The blessing, they don't actually taste that blessing. It comes from them. It's washing off all their stuff and go to the Egypt and Sudan and being blessed for them. But never been, they see it, but they never been used. It's a time to use. And I strongly believe the more that industry, you know, this power generates so much things, you know, the industries, and because there's a lot of the landscape is beautiful to farming, other industrial things. So it's liberation. It's a basic right, I think, for people to live in that. So finishing the dam, I hope the water flow or the rain season will be the same next year, hopefully. And then we can just finish it in 3, because that's the plan, from 3 to 5 years to finish it. So, and then, you know, no one can stop us after that. It's our dam, and people actually should do more and do more. I'm saying it is actually a blessing to be part of it. You can tell again and again for the coming generation, I contribute to this dam. This is my footprint.
The reaction of Ethiopians around the world was really interesting. You know, the government had a very much measured, seasoned reaction, so diplomatic, so peaceful, and that's what you would expect from, you know, a government. But the reaction of Ethiopians around the world was totally mixed. Almost everybody was angry. I remember to have spoken to even to my own mom, and she kind of mentioned, "Oh, are we going to have war again? If there's war, then what would be my contribution?" And I was just telling my mom, I don't think there's going to be war, but if there is one, I know you would find something to contribute. So almost everybody is ready to do something. So, you know, as a community organizer myself, you know, for us, every crisis, every challenge is an opportunity. So how can we use this as an opportunity to organize ourselves, to mobilize Ethiopians around the world? Because by the end of the day, we need to get the dam done. Simple as that. We have to get it done. That is the least we could do, because that is the most important thing for us. That's going to give us liberation. Economic liberation. It's going to make us a stronger country that Ethiopia has never been. It will bring a lot for Ethiopia. So for that to happen, we have to mobilize. We have to find tunnel resources into Ethiopia. So Ethiopians around the world have to really find ways to support that thing. Because by the end of the day, dam is a unifier. It's a national, an icon. It's for every one of us. You know, we could have differences in our political opinions, but as far as the dam, the GERD is concerned, it's ours. So nobody's going to stop us. And then, you know, my message to my friends and families, relatives in the United States, you know, there are some who used to vote for the Republicans, for that matter. They can still support and, you know, vote for the Republicans. But as far as this time around is concerned, they should think about, you know, the interest of the country they originated from. They could be, you know, most Ethio-Americans who are living in America, who have the right to use their democratic rights, to exercise that right and say, no, you know, we are not voting for you because you are inciting violence in the country where we all came from, you know, in a country that's very peaceful. And as far as the diaspora is concerned, you know, what we can do is support the dam financially, but at the same time raise the issue with whoever is actually concerned, because it's really important that, you know, such reckless comment, I call it reckless because it is so reckless comment, could have an impact on the region and consequently on the countries we live in the country like the United Kingdom, because by the way, if there's a crisis, then we'll be among the ones who would be affected. So we have to reach out to to our MPs and parliamentarians and inform them of, you know, what could happen because of this unnecessary comment. So, you know, it has kind of mobilized us, but we have to be very practical. And, you know, if we cannot be practical today, then when? So we have to organize ourselves today. We have to actually provide whatever we can today. We cannot wait, because we want to see, by the day, we want to see the dam done. It's our dam. It's Africa's dam, and let's get it done.
The negotiation between the three countries resumed this week. What is the chance that the countries will reach agreement? And do you think Trump's comment will pressure Ethiopian negotiators in accepting a deal that compromises our interests? Dr. Lulsegged?
I don't think so. I doubt whether that would really have an impact. Just on the previous one, I think, you see, well, today, as we talk, after an hour or so, there is a big demonstration going on here in London in front of the American embassy in protest of the statement President Trump has made. There is a reaction from the diaspora and expressing our concern to the statement, reckless statement that has really been made by the president. And I don't think that the statement from President Trump would pressurize Ethiopia to really make a deal which doesn't reflect the interest of the Ethiopian people, which is going to be against the interest of the Ethiopian people. It has really been made very clear from the very outset. Ethiopia is for equitable share of water. That is out of question. And Ethiopia is entitled to use its water for its own development without harming anybody in the two downstream countries. And that is according to international law. And Ethiopia has really been focused on that. But the contentious issue when it comes to the negotiation is, it is a question of power. Egypt wants to have spies, engineers sitting in the dam at GERD site so that they want to control the flow of water. Well, Ethiopia has said no, and they are going to say no. And I don't blame the Egyptians. They have requested the same thing in Uganda, in Jinja. In the Jinja office, Egyptians have Egyptian experts who are monitoring the flow of water and report back to Cairo. They want to apply that principle. So Ethiopia is saying that, well, I'm sorry, we are not negotiating on that. This is our dam. We have both the capacity, the capability, the skills, the experience, name it, that is required to manage our dam. So that has really been very clear, and Ethiopia is not going to change this position at all, because this is a question of national security and sovereignty of a state. Well, As we have said earlier on, this is an iconic dam. It is a symbol of Africa. It is special to Ethiopia as well. They don't want to really give that security access to the Egyptians by giving them an office at the dam. And that also is rational when Ethiopia banned the flight over Gerd. And it's a question of national security. And it's not only Ethiopia that has done such things before. Well, during the 9/11 terrorist act, well, America blocked the airspace for days. And in any country, there are airspace that is not accessible by anybody. And that is according to international law. So it should not really be something that would be debated. It's not something because of fear, but it's at the interest of the national security. Therefore, these are some of the contentious issues, and Egypt has some Egyptians, well, I cannot say all Egypt, but some Egyptians have also been using this as an argument, saying that, well, Ethiopia is fearful of what is going to happen in Gerd, therefore they have blocked the airspace. So, but it is, blocking an airspace is a security issue, and it is according to international law, and therefore it's not going to be a new thing that Ethiopia has only practiced it. Well, in the UK, there are areas where it's not accessible by any airspace, which are not accessible by others. And there are days and times when there is a security concern, they would block it too. They say that, well, we don't allow you to fly over this place. We don't allow you to come to this place. So this should not be seen as unwillingness from Ethiopia to sign an agreement, but it is part of a security, international security agreement and endeavor. So it is not going to be sidetracked, but it is going to really go as planned. Ethiopia is not going to forfeit any of the deals that they have been arguing for sake of, because of this estimate of the president, but it would really, they would argue and go for the interest of the people. And I'm sure and I'm confident that the African Union, which has taken the lead in it, is going to really broker both deals which is beneficial for all the three countries and Africa, the Nile Basin countries and the African continent at large.
One thing we know, Ethiopians, we prefer being hungry than giving our freedom, our interest to others. This is ours again and again, century after century. This is who we are. And then I don't think any of the government, that's my belief, I hope, no one can give up this right. And because the whole country is behind them, when it comes to this, despite our political difference, despite our, fighting each other, not liking even the government, when it comes to this, we are all of us behind this. And there's no other pressure for the government to go and do this. And I think it's really clear, and the world should be clear on this, and America shouldn't be fooled. Or Egypt either. I don't think there is nothing happen on that, but we will be negotiate for from the first, the beginning of this dam, and from the historical background, we want to have equally share and equitable share of the Nile. Not only Ethiopia, Egypt, and Sudan to share it, but other 11 countries to come for the best interest of our 11 countries. So this is a start, and that will be continue. Of course, there are some minor things. Again, I was saying earlier, it's not only the water. They know Blue Nile or Abebe is more than enough for all this country. And also the power which generate will be benefiting all of us. But what we know is Egyptian, there is a word, it's like they want to always control because they don't want to let that privilege go. And it's hard privilege to go. And I understand them if they try to hang on whatever they like. But you know what? We are not in that stage. You can't keep turning back this, what is going on. It's better to negotiate, come for our common interests Because when Ethiopia is in peace and develop, still, there's a lot of Ethiopian migrant refugees in Egypt. You will not have that. It's for their interest. And we can grow together. Collaboration is the only way to go forward. Collaboration with respect of each other's national interests. So I don't see any way Ethiopian government will hand over the interest of the Ethiopian national interests, because there's no reason to do that, because the public is behind them.
It's important that the Trump administration should know that Ethiopia will not bow down. Never. That's not going to happen. Ethiopia has never bowed down. This is a country. This is a very proud country with proud people, and we will never bow down. So the comment, as reckless as it is, will have no impact on the negotiation, as far as I see it. I do have trust in the negotiators. Coming back to America, it was a convener first. It just wanted to convene it. And then it went into, what do you call them, mediator. And then finally, it just wanted to be a decision maker. That's not what we wanted to happen. That's not what we asked. And number one, we didn't ask it, they just invited themselves. And we were so respectful, and we accepted, them convening this meeting. But for them to go from conveners to decision makers was really unacceptable. So I'm really proud that it's now being led by the South African president and African Union. I do have respect for them. I believe there's going to be a win-win situation. We cannot actually continue to live, as in the good old days. That will no more happen. The Nile should benefit all the Nile basin countries. The Nile should benefit every one of us. Ethiopians are entitled to have electricity. We are entitled to have development. We are entitled to live our life in a comfortable way. And for that to happen, we need to have, a consensus. We have to reach at a consensus. So we may not get the 100% we want, but in negotiations, all those things would happen. But at the same time, all the other countries will not get the 100% they want. So there should be proper negotiation. And I think I do have trust in this African-led negotiation. And that's what's needed: an African-led negotiation, an African-led solution, an African-led development. And the GERD will be an African dam.
If you have any final message, but also if you point out if the US election that's going to happen next week will have some sort of impact in the direction of the US policy towards the Great Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Can I start with Dr. Lulsegged?
Well, I think there is no turning back when it comes to the dam. It's going to go as planned. I think, as it has been stated by the Prime Minister, the Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy recently, the two generators will start testing the generators within a couple of months, and therefore that would continue. Well, we have already captured 4.9 billion cubic meter of water, and then thanks to God, the rain was good, therefore we managed without harming anybody, though it was not going to harm anybody either, as originally planned. And in the next phase, next year we are planning to have 13.5 billion cubic meter of water, which I'm confident that we would be able to harvest that with the current trend and without harming both downstream countries. Does the election have an impact on the dam? Well, I think what we have to be aware is, as you know, President Trump has really been very vocal and then insensitive of politics because of it was in his regime now. The US is out of the UN Human Rights Council. threatening to really UNICEF and WHO is also under a threat. They have said that they have pulled out the support they are going to give. And as I've said earlier on, now they are also trying to mess up the World Trade Organization because they could not endorse a consensus person, a Nigerian lady who has won the interest of the consensus of all except the US. So I mean, at least, well, I mean, you can see what has happened with China. So I mean, what, he has been a threat to NATO? Well, you can, it's a very long list. So if Mr. Trump leaves with, well, is defeated, then things would change. Would President Biden, Biden would work against the interest of the American people? No, but the language they are going to use, the approach they are going to use would be different than President Trump. That is how I see it. So if the Democrats win, well, the language would be different. The process they are going to really go and engage with internationally is going to be different. Well, at least Biden would not say what Trump has said about Africans. Well, he was very sorry to say, well, it was very inappropriate to really use that word. I don't want to really repeat that word which he has said. Having said that, well, to our brothers and sisters in both in Sudan and Egypt, well, the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam is not going to harm anybody. As I've said earlier on, it benefits Sudan. It will reduce the amount of silt and the amount of resources they are going to really use in dredging it. Even if you go to Egypt, the Aswan Dam, there is an area which is protected, which can have a capacity to hold 40.5 billion cubic meters of water, flood water. Actually, the Great Renaissance Dam would enable them to use that piece of land that has been allocated for flooding, for controlled flooding, for farming. So it is in the interest of them. And well, as Ethiopians, we know how water is important. Therefore, we don't want to really see neither Egyptians to get trusty, to really go under that they should not get access to water. But well, we have to really use it, and God is not going to really affect anybody in the region. For Egypt, it is a question of power. It is water hegemony, as we say. It is because of that hegemony of power. They want to say that, well, we are the owner of Nile. And that takes us back to the 1929 treaty, which gave Egypt all power to control any project on Nile. So history has changed. We are in the 21st century. Therefore, Egyptians, the politicians especially, have to go out of that old, out-of-dated narrative and work towards and collaborate with the basin countries for equitable share of water. So that is what I would like to really, as an ordinary citizen of Ethiopia, to tell them that, well, we are not as citizens of Ethiopia to harm the people of Egypt and deprive their access to water. But we are saying that let us work for equitable share of water. Thank you.
I think my final words, just for my fellow Ethiopians, what I said is it's our duty to finish this dam and make it a history. And to fellow Africans, I think it's time to vocal their voice and stand beside with Ethiopians, because this is a century to come to be changed the history of our economy, liberty and freedom in African regions. So you know, they can be contributing in the factors that, you know, bi-directly, if you are in the regional, the basin area in the Ethiopian or Abebe or Blue Nile basin area, you are allowed to be part of the buying the bond or donating. If not, I think you can be a voice and for justice, because Ethiopians was for a long time under injustice to utilize our Blue Nile or our Abebe. So we need to be together as African. We need to support each other. At least diplomatically, using Twitter, Facebook, name it, all the social media. Take this is also, it's my cause, because it will open up so much things. Because African, you know, they think they are actually giving a lot of money to Africa, and actually they're taking so much money from African out. So it's the time to keep that money to us. And our political freedom is there, but we need also economical freedom, because without these two, we are very going hand in hand. Even if we have political right, if you don't have economical freedom, doesn't actually mean. That's why we are, after a long history of freedom, still we are indirectly, most of Africans are colonized on that. So it is a good demonstration, actually, what Trump says. When they're just shutting us, because if we don't say yes, but you know, it doesn't that much harm in Ethiopia. Of course, we will be tremble around a bit, you know, struggling, but we will do it. It doesn't stop us to build a dam. But this is a good sitting president saying this. It shows us how unfair the Western, not all of them, but most of them, the economical imbalance. So it is time for us to shape our destiny for our coming generation. We don't want them to be, you know, dispersed in the world and being a third, fourth, you know, citizen. So this changing, looking at from this broader point is important as African. And then we need to finish this dam, literally. And the world, I think we know, in those who believe strongly with fairness, justice, I think they should stand and influencing their democratic right, as they do in America, but other countries also who are watching and listening this, use your political power, because I have so many European friends, other Western friends, who saying, oh, what can we do? I don't believe it, this is wrong, but it doesn't help us that. What it helps us at in the grassroots level, do your part, influence your MP, especially if there is a relationship with Africa. So that way you can support this. And another thing, this is a clear energy. You know, the world is, you know, our earth can't anymore handle another dirty energy. So Blue Nile or the Abebe, this is a clean energy. It's good for environment, it's good to the economy, it's good for people. So we need to support it in that space. And regional cooperation for my fellow Egyptian and Sudanese brothers and sisters. This is a message I have is, let's grow together. It's enough. You don't go far if you go by only yourself. This is African proverb. Let's do together for equal benefit in equitable share of Abebe or Blue Nile.
My message for Ethiopians around the world is, let's get the dam done. Let's get it done. That's the only thing we can do. So if you are angry at what President Trump said, let's get it done. If you are really angry, here's another message, let's get it done. Do what you can do. Contribute money, mobilize yourself, and get it done. And my message for fellow Africans, it's an African icon. It is for the benefit of every one of us. So let's see this dam done. My brothers and sisters in Egypt and Sudan, you know, let's grow together. It's all about growing together, because our growth would mean your growth. Our success would mean your success. The dam should not be thought to be a threat for you. It should be thought as a success for you as well. So let's go to success together. By the end of the day, my success would mean your success. Ethiopia's success would mean Sudan's success, Egypt's success, and Africa's success. So let's work together. Let's live together, because the dam, I mean, the Nile is big enough for every one of us to use, for all the Nile basin countries to use. So let's use it together. Let's support one another. Let's liberate ourselves economically. That's my message. Thank you.
I thank you all for taking the time and providing your insights about Trump's comments.